All right, let's move on to the start of the show. Do you ever get the feeling you're being lied to? Because when the Prime Minister droned on about this...
The way to make it work is to smash the gangs that are running the vile trade.
What's actually happening is the complete opposite, isn't it? What's actually happening is the only thing that's being smashed is Britain's borders and our communities. Because today it's been revealed that instead of stopping boatloads of strange men crossing the Channel and settling in Britain, the government's now offering private landlords tons of money and insane benefits if they house illegal migrants in their properties, potentially next door to you and me. Well, let's take a look at the detail, shall we? Landlords will get 5 years guaranteed rent from the government through its contractor Serco for putting up Channel migrants in their properties. All bills and maintenance will be completely covered. The landlord won't have to fork out a penny. So that's water, gas, electricity for all these illegals paid for by the taxpayer. If anything goes wrong or the property needs repairs, you and me will foot the bill. Landlords just need to hand over the keys, sit back and collect their massive payday. Meanwhile, our sacred communities all up and down the land are already being filled with unidentified men from faraway lands whose backgrounds are a mystery and whose intentions are unknown. So let me ask you this evening, can you imagine how little old Doris feels listening to this after Labour swipes her £300 winter fuel allowance? Because remember, it was Keir Starmer himself who accused Rishi Sunak of wanting to do that very thing before Labour came into power.
Last year, the Prime Minister was apparently drawing up plans to remove the winter fuel allowance from pensioners. So will he now rule out taking pensioners' winter fuel payments off them to help fund his £46 billion black hole?
Yeah, or can you imagine how hard-working homeowners feel hearing this after opening their council tax bills this month and seeing them rocket, despite promising before the election that Labour would freeze council tax? And it was only a few weeks ago that I told you how Labour's planned 1.5 million new homes. Remember these?
Britain rebuilt with 1.5 million new homes. So the security I enjoyed when I was growing up, the base camp aspiration of home ownership, doesn't move further and further away from working class families like mine.
Yeah, well, it turns out that some of those homes will be going to illegal migrants too. I spoke about it on the show a few weeks back. Government documents confirm that a chunk of those new homes, which I frankly doubt Labour will ever get round to building anyway, will be going to illegal migrants in a bid to stop the use of £5 million a day asylum hotels. So, again, I ask you, can you imagine how young British families, desperate for their own homes, felt hearing that Labour's new houses will be going to foreigners who shouldn't be here in the first place? Or how they feel today hearing about this new plan to put migrants in private rented accommodation. Because not only are young British families now being stitched out of getting on the property ladder, they're now being squeezed out of the rental sector too, because it appears illegal migrants come first. I'd urge tonight any decent landlord with some sense of morality about them to flat out refuse to work with the government to house those migrants. But as the secret landlord wrote in the Daily Telegraph today, part of Serco's sell is that it claims it will also pay for utilities and council tax. And at a time when these bills are at record levels, akin to a second mortgage, I don't know one landlord who wouldn't snap up this offer. Promotional material to landlords from Serco says the firm is already responsible right now for more than 30,000 asylum seekers in an ever-growing portfolio of more than 7,000 properties. And this comes, of course, as small boat arrivals under Labour are up a massive 40%, with new records for daily small boat arrivals being set earlier this month. And good weather next week is expected to encourage thousands more to come. Aren't you lucky? So Keir Starmer and his government have told you they want to stop the boats, and I've been wondering in recent months whether their failure to do so has been incompetence or intentional. What I know for sure is that this government cares more about illegal migrants than hard-working British people who have lived, worked and paid tax here all their lives. The very people our politicians are meant to prioritise. And breaking in the last few moments, Tory leader Kemi Badenoch has launched an unprecedented attack on the Prime Minister by writing in tomorrow's Sunday Telegraph that Keir Starmer is a, quote, coward with no moral core who lacks the courage to admit his mistakes. She writes in a devastating attack, our Prime Minister just says whatever he needs to get through the next news cycle, the next day or the next election. That's not leadership, that's cowardice. There's no conviction, No moral core, just performance. When faced with hard decisions, he dodges them and he breaks his promises. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, former Metropolitan Police Detective Peter Blexley, and the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards, and a very special guest, Matthew Stadlin, under the desk. No, just joking, he's not here. You're free. Paul Richards. Kemi Badenoch, a blistering attack, and it kind of backs up my thoughts on this government at the moment. I have had it up to my teeth with, I'm going to call them lies now. They've lied. They said they'll stop the boats. They said that this would be sorted out. They said they'd stop using asylum hotels. All they're doing is rearranging the deck chairs. And now communities up and down the country are going to be dealt a bitter blow by having strange men parked up next door to them.
I think it's interesting. Obviously, we're in a lead up to an election, so we have to be quite careful what we say about some of the politics. But it's interesting that Kemi sounds increasingly desperate to try and just cut through and get any kind of attention at all, because she's not making any headway. Nigel Farage is the person who seems to be making most of the headlines in the lead up to the election. So her language sort of reflects that desperation.
Kemi's not wrong, is she?
Well, she is wrong, but I think she's also a bit desperate in some of the tone of what she's saying and the way she's saying it. On your specific point, though, I don't think it's a lie to say we are trying to smash these gangs, but I think it's unfair to suggest it can be done within 6 months, because obviously it's a very complex,
how many gangs have been smashed, Paul?
Well, there's been quite a good series of attempts to do this in terms of the cooperation with the French and the Belgian police, stopping the phones being used.
Paul, costings are up 40% year on year.
But as you yourself have said, that's linked to the weather, right? And there's no way you can smash these gangs without a very complex
They
series
said they'd
of
stop
things.
migrant hotels, and now they're shoving them in houses in residential streets.
Well, that's better,
for
isn't
people
it?
like you and me.
You can't complain about the hotels, which I
don't want a bunch of small boat migrants living next door to me and my kids.
Well,
Thank you very much.
These are vast sums of money that are being spent on putting people into the private sector.
I don't think Serco should be profiting from it, actually.
But it's
I think
not just Serco. There are several companies acting as the middleman in all of these negotiations, and they are making a great deal of money.
But I don't want them homeless either, because that costs more money.
Well, I just don't want them here, Paul, to be frank.
But you would just send them back, wouldn't you? But that,
So would I.
So would Peter Blexley.
Yeah.
Peter?
However, we can't, can we? So
If we can.
How?
Oh, if only there was a political will, it could quite easily be done. But of course, we've got a spineless government. And when it comes to smashing the gangs, this government smashes avocados. And that's about all, right? So we've had stop the boats, we've had smash the gangs, and now we've got spread the illegals.
I completely
and that's
agree
what's
with
happening.
Peter.
Spread the
right
illegals.
into the heart of our communities.
I completely agree that what this government and previous governments have got to do is stop using cut and paste phrases that they think will win over the voter. You're quite right. Stop the gangs. Stop the boats, smash the gangs. They're meaningless phrases unless you back them up with action, and that's the problem.
Spread the illegals isn't meaningless, because that's exactly what's happening.
I like that, Peter. I'm nicking that. Spread
You're
the
very
illegals.
welcome.
But Paul, on a serious note, Keir Starmer's in trouble, isn't he? Nothing of note is going well for the Prime
Well,
Minister.
you just talked there about hard-working Brits. You have totally not mentioned the increase in the national minimum wage that happened on the 1st of April. There's loads of workers now getting more money.
Well, council tax has gone up. That's wiped out by council tax, wiped out by energy bills.
Isn't that fair to say that it's gone up?
And the national insurance increase, which has meant that so many people have not been employed. But Ben, if I might just...
And the waiting lists to come down in the National Health Service as well. So the health service
what you say, all with huge justification, of course. Speak to people that work for local authorities, the councils, OK? There will be a woman tonight with her children fleeing domestic violence.
Yep.
And I can guarantee you that in councils, the length and breadth of the country, they will be saying, we do not have any accommodation for you. And yet the government wants to go out and yet again roll out this kind of scheme to house illegals. It is a failure of British people in need, and deep, deep shame upon all of them.
Just let me make one observation. The local authorities, and here I've now only got the figures of the evacuees, but they all had to be cleared out of hotels in August by the 31st of that month, and they were all put into private rental accommodation. And I watched as that local councilwoman sat with the people, some of whom were in need, but many of whom were not, while they totted up their benefits, which came to £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 a month.
Yeah, it's a joke.
So they could afford to go into rental accommodation. The problem is they get into rental accommodation, and then what do other people do who've been waiting a long time?
It's a joke.
To get a roof over
There's a
their
social
heads?
housing waiting list of 1.3 million people. And do you know what, Paul? I've got no more goodwill left for this government. I've tried to be tactful. I've tried to give them goodwill and time.
Have you?
I think I have. I have indeed.
I think you started out not really liking this government, and, you've just gone carried on the same.
I wanted to give them a chance.
Really?
They have proven time after time that they care more about the international order, their buddies down at the solicitors in here, there, and everywhere in Timbuktu, and they care more about migrants than they do British people.
Something else
and that
you
is
said.
a fact. You can judge people by the content of their character, and this government has proven time after time they don't give a damn about British people.
Just something
to
pick up one point you made, though, is quite important about the housing programme. You see, that is the way we fix the broken housing market, isn't it? And just to say I don't think they're going to do it, I think it's a really good target to have in place. I think we need to dedicate national resource to building the homes.
And they're giving those to migrants
They're
as well.
not giving 1.5 million homes to migrants.
Some of them.
Serco was saying 7,000 was the number they were talking about. So let's build the houses.
Yeah. OK, thank you, panel. Good start.